Welcome back to the Short Game Podcast. It is Friday, February 27th, the end of the week, and something is going to go wrong today. A shipment is going to be late. A vendor is going to mess up a custom order. A VIP client is going to complain. When it happens, what is your first instinct? The clown points his finger. He blames the supplier. He blames the shipping company. He plays the victim because it protects his fragile ego. But the tycoon knows a hard truth. There are no bad teams, only bad leaders. Today, we are reading The Ultimate Guide to Taking the Crown, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. I'm Drew Meitner. I am 25, and I run NexYear. When a logistics campaign for a CEO fails, I don't blame my suppliers. If the vendor messed up, it is my fault for hiring them. If the shipping was late, it is my fault for not building a buffer. The buck stops with the Rat King. If you want the glory, you have to take all of the blame. Let's close out the week.
What's your name?
My name is Tom Shelby.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius.
King Ragnar. That is my name.
Yo soy Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria.
I'm Batman.
This is Jon Snow. He's king in the north.
My name is Asax Schrader.
The name's Bowman. James Bowman.
Antonio Montano.
My name is Patrick Bateman.
My name is Walter Hartwell White.
My name is Gustavo, but you can call me Gus.
Picture this exact scenario. It is 3 p.m. on a random Thursday. You are sitting at your desk, looking at a tracking screen that just refreshed with a massive red error icon. Your stomach drops completely out of your body. A massive logistics campaign just went completely off the rails. You have a VIP client expecting a delivery of 50 high-end, custom-built packages for their executive board meeting tomorrow morning. Thousands and thousands of dollars are on the line. The reputation of your entire agency is hanging by a single frayed thread, and the critical shipment is nowhere to be found. It is delayed, it is lost, or it is sitting on a loading dock 3 states away because some warehouse worker scanned the wrong barcode. What is your immediate visceral reaction? If you are like 99% of the population, your first instinct is a weak, pathetic urge to point fingers. You want to scream at the shipping company. You want to blame the vendor for packing the items late. You want to blame the client for giving you a tight deadline in the first place. You want to play the victim to protect your fragile ego. You want to look around the room and find absolutely anyone else to absorb the impact of this failure. Let me tell you something right now. Operating like that makes you a clown. It makes you a spectator in your own life, sitting in the stands and complaining about the referees while the real game passes you by. Welcome to episode 15. This is the Empire Week. We are focusing all week on scale, ruthlessness, and power. And today we are talking about the ultimate mechanism of absolute power. We are talking about the crown. The core angle today is simple, but it is the hardest pill you will ever swallow in your business career. The buck stops with you. There are absolutely no bad clients. There are no bad suppliers. There are no bad employees. There are only bad leaders. If you want to build an empire, you have to understand that taking 100% of the blame is the only way to maintain 100% of the control. We are diving deep today into a book that completely rewired how I look at business, leadership, and life. The book is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Beben. These guys are United States Navy SEALs who took the brutal, blood-soaked lessons they learned in the worst combat zones on Earth and translated them into a blueprint for leadership. I operate a business, I do not carry a rifle, but the fundamental mechanics of human nature and systems do not change. Jocko Willink's core concept is the title of the book itself, Extreme Ownership. It means exactly what it sounds like. You own everything in your world. There is no one else to blame. There is no weather condition, no supply chain disruption, and no market crash that exempts you from the responsibility of your mission. When a team fails, the leader of the blame must look entirely in the mirror shift and never out the window. Most people spend their entire careers looking out the window. The leader looks out the window and gives all the credit to the team. They blame the economy. They blame the algorithm. They blame their lazy employees. They blame bad drivers slowing down traffic. I hate avoidable stupidity just as much as anyone, but pointing fingers at it does not solve the underlying problem. Jocko breaks down a massive concept called the dichotomy of leadership. To be a true operator, you have to balance completely opposing forces. You have to lead, but you also have to be ready to follow. You have to be aggressive, but you cannot be reckless. You have to hold people accountable, but you cannot micromanage them into paralysis. But the most critical dichotomy is how you handle your own ego. Your ego is the absolute enemy of your success. Your ego wants you to look good. Your ego wants you to be right. Your ego wants to tell the client that the vendor screwed up just so the client does not think you are stupid. But the leader's ego must be entirely sacrificed for the success of the mission. If you let your ego dictate your actions, you will start pointing fingers. And let me explain exactly why pointing fingers completely destroys the chain of command. If you are the founder and you blame your logistics manager for a failed delivery, what happens? Your logistics manager learns that in this company, survival means shifting the blame. So the logistics manager blames the warehouse worker. The warehouse worker blames the shipping software. Suddenly, you have an entire organization built on a fragile foundation of excuses. No one is solving the problem because everyone is too busy defending their own territory. You have bred a culture of spectators instead of operators. It is a toxic, rotting disease that will kill your company from the inside out. Jocko tells a powerful story about a massive friendly fire incident in Ramadi. It was a complete disaster in the fog of war. Multiple moving parts, different units, terrible communication. When the commanding officers demanded to know whose fault it was, Jocko did not blame his subordinates. He did not blame the other units involved in the operation. He did not blame the faulty radio equipment. He stood up in front of everyone and said that as the commander, the failure was his and his alone. He took the crown of thorns. And you know what happened? He did not get fired. He gained the ultimate respect of his superiors and his men. Because when you take the blame, you are actually taking control. Think about the pure logic behind this for a second. If a failure is someone else's fault, then you are merely a victim of their incompetence. You are helpless. You are relying on them to fix it, which means they hold all the power. But if you say that the failure is your fault, you instantly reclaim all the leverage. If it is your fault, you can change the system. If it is your fault, you can implement a new standard operating procedure. If it is your fault, you have the absolute authority to ensure it never happens again. Taking ownership is not about self-flagellation. It is the ultimate expression of power. It is the only way to dictate the terms of your reality. If you refuse to take ownership, you are surrendering your empire to the whims of other people. And I do not surrender my freedom or my control to anyone. Freedom is my North Star, and you cannot have freedom without total accountability. Now let us bridge the gap between Jocko's theory and my reality. Let us connect the dots directly to what we do here. I am a 25-year-old founder running NexYear. We are a physical B2B access agency. We are not selling digital air or theoretical consulting. We are moving heavy, high-stakes physical products in the real world. And out here in the real world, things get messy very fast. Let us talk about our first core value, the blame game versus the crown. When a campaign fails at NexYear, the absolute worst instinct, the clown instinct, is to look for a scapegoat. Let us say a client sends us the wrong art file for a massive printing run. The products get produced, they look terrible, and the deadline is tomorrow. The clown instinct is to immediately email the client and say that they sent us the wrong file, so this is their fault. The clown thinks they won the interactions because they protected their ego, but the tycoon instinct is entirely different. The Rat King takes absolute uncompromising responsibility. The tycoon looks at that situation and says, "It is my fault. It is my fault for not having a rigorous verification system in place. It is my fault for not insisting on a physical proof before running the entire batch. It is my fault for assuming the client knew what they were doing instead of protecting them from their own mistakes. I know that if I pass the blame to that client, I surrender my power to fix the process for the next guy. I am not interested in being right. I am interested in winning. And you cannot win if you do not own the failures." This brings us directly to our second core value, which is the logistics reality we face every single day. At NexYear, we deal with incredibly complex custom products. We work with premium, high-end partners like Billy Kirk. We manage heavy, complicated, high-stakes logistics. We are delivering to CEOs, executives, and top-tier VIPs. These are people who do not have time for excuses. They do not care about your feelings, and they certainly do not care about your supply chain problems. They only care about flawless execution. In this business, things will inevitably break. The laws of physics and probability dictate that eventually a shipment will be late, a machine will jam, a truck will blow a tire. But here's the harsh reality of extreme ownership at NexYear. If a vendor messes up a custom leather order, it is entirely my fault for hiring that vendor. It is my fault for not aggressively inspecting their facility. It is my fault for not having a backup supplier already vetted and on standby. If a critical timeline is missed, it is not the shipping company's fault. It is my fault for not building a 20% buffer into the schedule. It is my fault for not communicating the severity of the deadline to the logistics manager. There is absolutely no room for the word "but" in my vocabulary. I refuse to tolerate incompetence, but if incompetence exists in my supply chain, I am the one who allowed it through the door. I am the architect of the system. If the system fails, the architect is to blame. I think in systems, not feelings. When you operate with this level of ruthless accountability, you unlock our third core value, building unbreakable trust. Trust is not built when everything is going perfectly. Any amateur can smile and shake hands when the sun is shining and the tracking numbers say delivered. Trust is forged in the absolute fires of a crisis. It is about how NexYear handles a disaster with high-level clients. Let us say a beautiful custom-designed presentation box is completely crushed in transit by FedEx. It arrives at the VIP's office looking like it was run over by a forklift. The amateur agency gets on the phone and immediately blames FedEx. They tell the client to file a claim with the shipping company. They try to wash their hands of the situation. That is how you lose a client forever. At NexYear, we do not blame FedEx. We do not even mention FedEx. We call the client immediately. We absorb the entire impact of the failure. We say, this is on us, and we are fixing it right now. We eat the cost of the destroyed product. We eat the astronomical cost of an emergency overnight replacement. We spin up the printers, we remake the box, and we get it on a plane. We own the failure entirely, from top to bottom. And do you know what happens when you do that? You create an untouchable mode of trust. The client realizes that you are not just a vendor. You are a partner who actually has their back. You are a straight shooter who keeps their word, no matter what it costs. They realize that you value loyalty and competence above a quick profit. You stop being a disposable expense on their balance sheet, and you become an indispensable asset. They will never leave you for a competitor who promises to do it 10 cents cheaper, because they know that when the sky falls, you are the one who will hold it up. You cannot buy that kind of loyalty. You have to bleed for it. You have to earn it by looking in the mirror and putting the crown on your own head. Let us go back to the fundamental truth of how people operate. I have said before that I divide the entire world into two categories. There are operators and there are spectators. Operators are the ones in the arena. They are taking risks, making decisions, and dealing with the violent reality of the marketplace. Spectators are the ones sitting safely on the sidelines. Spectators do nothing but complain, judge, and talk about what other people are doing wrong. Extreme ownership is the ultimate dividing line between an operator and a spectator. A spectator points fingers because they have no real skin in the game. An operator takes the blame because they are the ones driving the vehicle. Speaking of driving, you all know my biggest trigger in the world is bad drivers. I hate bad drivers with a genuine burning intensity. But why do I hate them? It is not just because they make me hit the brakes. It is because a bad driver is the perfect physical manifestation of a spectator mentality. They represent a total lack of situational awareness. They represent avoidable stupidity. They are people who make the world harder than it needs to be because they refuse to pay attention to their surroundings. But here is the extreme ownership pivot. If I get into an accident with a bad driver, who is at fault? The law might say they are at fault. The insurance company might say they are at fault. But Jocko Willink would tell me that I am at fault. And he would be completely right. It is my fault for not anticipating their stupidity. It is my fault for driving in their blind spot. It is my fault for not being defensive enough to avoid the hazard entirely. That is the brutal, unfiltered reality of taking the crown. You have to own the environment around you, even the parts you did not directly create. This is why I struggle to forgive deception and why I value brutal honesty. When a vendor lies to me about a shipping delay, I take that personally. But my emotional reaction is strictly internal. Externally, I have to process that betrayal through action and systems. I do not sit around venting about it. I do not journal about my feelings. I fire the vendor, and I build a better system to verify shipping manifests before they ever leave the dock. That is how a tycoon handles adversity. You build a fortress of operational discipline around your business. If you want to live a life where no one tells you what to do, you have to be the one who tells yourself what to do. Freedom is not free. Freedom is purchased with the currency of absolute responsibility. If you want to wake up, work on your own terms, win deals, play golf, and laugh with your boys, you cannot be a victim of your supply chain. You cannot be a slave to the incompetence of others. You have to dictate the terms of engagement, and you dictate those terms by taking the blame when things go sideways. Think about the sheer scale of what we are trying to accomplish at NexYear. We are building a machine that has to perform flawlessly under immense pressure. When you are handling custom Billy Kirk leather goods for a corporate retreat, every single stitch matters. Every single embossment has to be perfectly aligned. If the logo is crooked, I do not get to call the client and say the intern at the factory bumped the machine. The client does not know the intern. The client knows me. The client shook my hand, signed my contract, and wired money into my company's bank account. So when that crooked logo shows up, I am the one who failed. And taking that failure on the chin is exactly what separates the men from the boys in this industry. I have had the same core group of friends for 23 years. We have a deep, unbreakable bond. We bond through humor, shared experiences, and above all, consistency. If I tell one of my guys, I am going to be somewhere, I show up. If I fail to show up, I do not blame traffic. I look them in the eye and say I messed up my schedule. That same standard of loyalty and honesty has to translate directly to your business. If you treat your high-level clients with the same straight-shooting honesty that you treat your best friends, you will never lack for revenue. But it is terrifying for most people. It is terrifying to admit fault when there are thousands of dollars on the line. Your brain starts screaming at you to find a quick way out. It is a basic survival mechanism. But in business, the instinct to survive the moment is exactly what kills your long-term future. You have to override that weak instinct. You have to speed up when things get stressful. You get more intense, more focused, and more decisive. You do not shut down, and you absolutely do not hide behind an email. You pick up the phone. You call the CEO. You tell them exactly what broke, why it broke, and exactly what you are doing to fix it at your own expense. That is the tycoon move. That is how you turn a disaster into the greatest marketing tool you possess. Because when that CEO hangs up the phone, they are not angry about the delay. They are shocked. They are shocked because they are used to dealing with clowns who spin elaborate webs of excuses. They are used to vendors who try to nickel and dime them over a FedEx claim. When they see a 25-year-old founder step up, take the bullet, and solve the problem without a single complaint, you become a legend in their eyes. You establish dominance through service, you take the crown. This is what the Empire Week is all about. You cannot scale a business if your foundation is built on shifting blame. Scale requires solid ground. Solid ground is built on the absolute truth. And the truth is, if it happens in your company, it is your fault. So here's the actionable takeaway for today. This is where the rubber meets the road for every single person listening right now. I want you to look deeply at your own business, your own career, or your own team. I want you to pull out a piece of paper and write down the top 3 biggest problems you are currently facing. Write down the deals that fell through. Write down the products that shipped late. Write down the marketing campaign that completely failed to convert. Now, I want you to be brutally honest with yourself. Where are you currently pointing the finger? Are you blaming the Facebook ad algorithm for your poor sales? Are you blaming your suppliers in China for the production delays? Are you blaming your clients for not understanding your brilliant vision? If you are operating like a clown. You are willingly giving away your power to an algorithm, a factory, or a confused customer. I want you to take a red pen and cross out every single one of those excuses. I want you to write my fault next to every single problem. Your sales are down because your copy is weak and you have not tested enough creatives. Your production is delayed because you did not diversify your supply chain when you had the chance. Your clients are confused because your onboarding process is an absolute mess. Swallow the pride. Crush the ego. Take the blame today. Reclaim your authority. Fix the broken systems. Stop acting like a spectator in your own empire. get into the arena, put the crown on your head, and start leading like an operator. That is it for today's episode. Now get back to work.